Good evening, welcome to Scotland at 7. I'm Gordon Ross and it's the 24th of February. First of all, our coronavirus update. As of 2 o'clock today, a total of 1,669,255 people in Scotland have been tested through NHS Scotland labs and UK government regional testing centres since the start of the pandemic. Of these, 1,469,618 were confirmed negative, and 199,637 have tested positive. There are 798 new confirmed cases of COVID-19. This, of course, will be an underestimate of the number of cases. Not everyone with the virus will display the symptoms, and not all those with the symptoms will be tested. There were 47 new reported deaths of people who have tested positive. The number of patients in Scotland who have died from complications caused by the coronavirus COVID-19 infection now stands at 7,053. This number only includes those who have died having received a positive test for the virus in the previous 28 days. Of the people who have tested positive, 1,018 were in hospital last night, 93 of whom were in intensive care. As of 8 o'clock this morning, 1,488,077 people had received their first dose of the COVID-19 vaccination, and 50,121 had received their second dose. The latest UK's daily figures published today show that 121,747 patients who tested positive for COVID-19 have sadly died from their illness, an increase of 442 since yesterday. This number refers to deaths in all settings and not just hospitals. And now to the NRS update. As of the 21st of February, 9,347 deaths have been registered in Scotland, where the novel coronavirus COVID-19 was mentioned on the death certificate, according to statistics published by the National Records of Scotland today. In the week the 15th to the 21st of February, 290 deaths were registered as mentioning COVID-19 on the death certificate. This is a decrease of 35 deaths from the previous week. Over 80% of the deaths this week occurred in hospital, representing 235 deaths. 34 deaths occurred in care homes, 20 at home or in non-institutional settings, and 1 in another institution. The care home deaths involving COVID-19 continue to fall at a faster rate than other locations, showing a 90% decrease in the latest week and a 69% decrease over the last 4 weeks. Deaths from all causes remain higher than usual for this time of year, with 157 excess deaths recorded across all locations in the latest week, showing a 12% increase when compared with the average for the period 2015 to 2019. Now, I was going to say if you'd like to join the conversation tonight, you could do it on Twitter, but we are not doing our Twitter tonight. So I'm going to move on to our first story this evening. We were, I've just been told that we were supposed to have our guest this evening, David Linden MP, but due to some technical difficulties, we've not been able to reach him. Anyway, yes, the Westminster firewall is causing us difficulties. Anyway, to our first story this evening. Ian Blackford has called for Boris Johnson to rule out a return to austerity cuts. Ian Blackford MP has called on the Prime Minister to rule out a return to Tory austerity cuts and to commit to a major fiscal stimulus of at least 5% of GDP to help the economy recover from the COVID-19 pandemic. The SNP's Westminster leader said that the UK has suffered its worst recession in 300 years, and we need a government which understands the scale of the crisis. Mr Blackford asked the Prime Minister to follow the example of the United States and boost it like Biden. The US President has proposed a $1.9 trillion stimulus package to restart and renew the American economy. And today there have been claims that the UK government's Levelling Up Fund is a naked power grab. The SNP's Westminster Deputy Leader, Kirsten Oswald, has criticised the UK government for its naked power grab plans after it confirmed moves to bypass the devolved parliaments and take control over funding of devolved areas. It comes after the Treasury announced that its Levelling Up Fund would let Westminster dictate funding over key areas, such as the regeneration and transport, rather than passing on the Barnett consequentials to the devolved governments. Had the £4.8 billion fund been Barnettised, then the Scottish Government would have received around £400 million to spend on Scotland's priorities. The Home Office has today been accused of astonishing cruelty and incompetence. The SNP has slammed the Home Office for its simply astonishing cruelty and incompetence after Priti Patel suggested that asylum seekers would continue to be housed in military barracks and failed to rule out the possibility that workers from the EU could be sacked if they missed the settlement scheme deadline. In today's Home Affairs Committee, Stuart MacDonald MP asked the Home Office what documentation it relies on when it disputes the overwhelming evidence that a military barracks being used as an asylum accommodation is not fit for purpose and breaches human rights. Despite the evidence and offering nothing to rebut it, the Home Secretary confirmed that the dangerous military barracks would remain open and remained part of her plans for accommodating asylum seekers in the future. When asked whether care staff who failed to apply for the EU settlement scheme in time would have to be sacked, the Home Office was unable to answer. The question follows research by the Joint Council for the Welfare of Immigrants, revealing thousands, many of them care workers, are set to miss the deadline for the EU settlement scheme. And the SNP has demanded the UK government come clean on crony COVID contracts. The SNP has challenged the Cabinet Office to come clean over its handling of multi-billion-pound COVID contracts and set out when it first became aware that the failure to properly publish details of PPE contracts would be unlawful. Responding to an urgent question in Parliament today, the SNP's Stuart Hosey criticised the Tory government for a catalogue of cronyism, which has resulted in friends, acquaintances and Tory party donors securing lucrative contracts to provide PPE equipment and other services. It's been reported that the UK government has wasted around £207,000 of taxpayers' money fighting the recent High Court case, which ruled that the Health Secretary acted unlawfully when his department failed to reveal details of contracts it had signed during the pandemic. And a new government report finds that the UK government has failed disabled people for decades. Following a report revealing that nearly half of all people in poverty in the UK are disabled or live with someone who is disabled, the SNP has demanded the Chancellor use the budget to strengthen welfare protections to better support people with disabilities. The report from the Social Market Foundation and Scope found that despite decades of reforms and political promises from successive Westminster governments, more than 4 in 10 people, that's 42%, of all people in homes relying on disability benefits live in poverty. It also found that there are 1.8 million people, more people in poverty who live in a family that includes a disabled person than there were 15 years ago. Giving evidence to today's Work and Pensions Committee, James Taylor, the Executive Director of Strategy, Impact and Social Change at Scope, today urged the UK government to follow Scotland's lead regarding dignity, fairness and respect principles which run through all of the welfare policy, but also how employment support is delivered, because it makes a massive difference to disabled people. And now to news of Scotland's GDP for December 2020. Commenting on Scotland's GDP for December 2020, the Economy Secretary Fiona Hislop said, "Our economy has been badly hit by the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic. Both Scotland and the UK have seen record falls in GDP in 2020, but that's not surprising as large parts of the economy were required to close to protect lives. The most recent data shows that Scotland's economy increased by 1.6% in the final quarter of last year, compared to 1% across the UK. However, combined with the huge economic uncertainty caused by Brexit, this remains an extremely tumultuous time for the economy and for jobs. We will continue to press the UK government to ensure key support packages, such as the furlough scheme and VAT relief, are kept in place for as long as needed. As a responsible government, we are doing all we can to protect Scotland's economy and to ensure that as many people as possible keep their jobs. Our package of support to businesses now totals over £3 billion, and our support for economic recovery is worth more than £1 billion. On top of this, we have committed to extend non-domestic rates relief for the whole of next year, worth more than £700 million. We are using all the powers we have to rebuild a stronger, more resilient and sustainable economy for Scotland. And now it's been revealed that Brexit trade delays are getting worse at the UK's border. Delays importing and exporting goods to and from the EU because of Brexit have worsened since the start of the year and will result in stock shortages and price rises for consumers, according to a report. A survey of 350 supply chain managers found that 2 out of 3 had experienced delays of at least 2 to 3 days getting goods to the UK, compared with 38% who reported delays in a similar survey in January. A third of this group said the delays were significantly longer than in January. 28% said slightly longer, and 15% reported delays of a similar length to January. Just 18% of those surveyed by the Chartered Institute of Procurement and Supply said that they had experienced no delays or fewer delays. The situation was only slightly better for exports, with 44% experiencing delays of at least 2 to 3 days getting goods into the EU. The report comes as one of the UK's largest chemical producers, BASF, reveals that it has experienced substantial friction from the new trade barriers caused by withdrawal from the EU. In a submission to the Scottish Parliament ahead of a committee hearing on Brexit on Thursday, it said that its biopesticide business has not exported successfully from the UK during January. It said product losses had been high and the Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs had been unable to answer standard phytosanitary questions the industry warned about over 2 years ago, with hold-ups resulting in damaged and unusable products reaching the customer. It reported also that drivers were being forced to sleep in their trucks for days at UK-Irish border, and lorry loads were being turned back from their journey to the EU because paperwork and mixed loads seemed to flummox port officials. Now, speaking of borders, there is to be a new border control post at Cairnryan. Ministers are preparing for a new border control post to be created at Cairnryan in Dumfries and Galloway. To help deliver this plan, a Special Development Order, or SDO, has been laid in the Scottish Parliament, a statutory instrument which will help ensure that planning permission is in place for this vital infrastructure. Because of the terms of the Brexit deal negotiated by the UK government, goods entering the UK from the EU are now subject to the same border entry requirement and controls as goods from the rest of the world. As a result, border control posts, which imported goods are subjected to physical inspections, are being established across the UK. The Cairnryan BCP will be used to inspect goods arriving in Scotland from the Republic of Ireland and the wider EU via Northern Ireland, and the UK government require that it is established in the second half of 2021. Checks on animals, fish, plants, food and feed are required to ensure products entering the market do not present a risk to public health, and these checks are the responsibility of Scottish ministers. An appropriate site has been selected. A site-specific planning consent will have to be obtained before construction can get underway, and the SDO requires engagement to be carried out with various parties before this approval can be sought. And now to America. California is to enforce net neutrality after a judge rejects a challenge by internet providers. California could soon implement its landmark net neutrality law following a court ruling yesterday, nearly 3 years after the state legislature enacted the measure, the state attorney general's office said. US Judge John Mendez for the Eastern District of California said in an oral ruling that he would not block the law from taking effect, as sought by 4 telecom and broadband industry groups. California's 2018 law barred internet service providers from blocking or throttling traffic or offering paid fast lanes. California's Attorney General Xavier Becerra applauded the decision. The ability of an internet service provider to block, slow down or speed up contact based on a user's ability to pay for service degrades the very idea of a competitive marketplace and the open transfer of information at the core of our increasingly digital and connected world, he said. The Federal Communications Commission, the FCC, under the former President Barack Obama, adopted net neutrality rules in 2015. These were overturned in 2017 by the FCC under President Donald Trump. California's legislature responded by adopting a state law requiring net neutrality in August of 2018. Supporters of net neutrality argue that the protections ensure a free and open internet. Broadband and telecoms trade groups contend that their legal basis from the pre-internet era was outdated and they would discourage investment. And now to other news. The Scottish Greens say that railways can pave the way to a green recovery. Scotland's railways can play a crucial role in getting Scotland moving again, while cutting dangerous climate emissions, the Scottish Greens have said. In the last report, led by the Scottish Green Transport spokesperson John Finney before he retires at the election, the party's £22 billion Rail for All proposals to upgrade, nationalise and electrify the railways were introduced to Parliament. Speaking afterwards, John Finney said, "I'm pleased to have had the opportunity to bring our ambitious Rail for All proposals to Parliament after they were welcomed by industry experts and trade unions. Making rail the natural choice for passengers and freight would be a strategic investment in the recovery from the COVID crisis and could play a big role in cutting transport emissions as we tackle the climate crisis too." Crucially, the fully costed plans from the Scottish Greens use technology that already exists, rather than pinning our hopes on new inventions that we can't afford to wait for. This investment could alleviate congestion on our roads and open up Scotland to those who don't drive. And now to the NHS. NHS staff are to get an interim pay rise. NHS Scotland Agenda for Change staff will get an interim pay increase, which will be backdated to the 1st of December 2020. Ahead of full pay negotiations being concluded in the coming months. In recognition of an exceptional year of significant pressure, staff will receive an interim pay increase of 1%, which will be backdated to the 1st of December, ahead of the final 2021-22 pay settlement. This follows a £500 thank you payment announced earlier. Pay increases are usually effective from the 1st of April. Both the 1% interim rise and the full pay settlement, once agreed, will be backdated to the 1st of December 2020, benefiting 154,000 Agenda for Change employees, including all NHS nurses, paramedics, healthcare support staff and allied health professionals. Formal negotiations over staff pay have been affected by the cancellation of the UK government's budget and subsequent impact on the Scottish Spending Review. This uncertainty has significantly impacted on the ability to progress and conclude pay negotiations as we continue to respond to the coronavirus pandemic and deliver a nationwide vaccination programme, meaning the conclusion of pay negotiations for staff have been delayed. And now today sees the launch of a £15 million Scottish Community Lenders Fund. A new £15 million fund has been announced to support affordable lending services. It will support credit unions and community development financial institutions, which offer financial help to those who have poor credit and are often turned away from high street banks. The funding will support work which promotes the availability of affordable credit, strengthens the balance sheet of affordable credit providers, and organisations are being invited to submit applications by the 3rd of March 2021, and they'll be informed of funding decisions during the week commencing the 8th of March. Successful applicants will receive funding by the 31st of March. And that is about it for tonight's news. Just remains for me to remind you that Broadcasting Scotland is running a major crowdfunder at the moment. So if you'd like to join many hundreds and thousands of other people who have already joined by becoming a supporter of Broadcasting Scotland for just £5 a month, or making an individual donation or volunteering, you can do so by following the instructions on your screen now. That's about it from me here in the studio at Cowcaddens tonight. I'll be back again tomorrow night for another edition of Broadcasting Scotland. But for me tonight, a very good evening to you.
What distinguishes Broadcasting Scotland from a website or blog, apart from our brilliant programmes?
Hi there, I'm Gordon Ross.
Are the costs we face to enable us to produce those programmes. These costs are significant and ongoing. However, our facilities are able to do so much more if only we had the staff. In the last year, some of our supporters in one of it. The really positive outcome of our fundraiser is that at a time of economic challenge in Scotland, we will use your donations to create jobs and in a small way contribute to improving the Scottish economy. If you want us to be Scotland's independent broadcaster, able to provide an alternative mainstream television platform, then please support us.
Scotland is going to be an independent country.
Just imagine what we could do if we had even 1% of the BBC Scotland channel's budget. Imagine. And then please consider turning your imagination into reality. Please support us if you can afford it.